Yay, let's get started. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Deborah, how are you?
Well, how about yourself?
I am good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Welcome, everyone. This is Broker Chat, the end of March. We're bringing the first quarter to a close, if we can all believe that one. It flew by, and we're ready to get started for that busy spring season. I hope that everyone is going to enjoy. But before we enjoy it, let's talk about a couple of things. First of all, this is Broker Chat. For those of you that this is the first time you've ever been on this call, welcome. For those of you that are groupies and you're back again, we're excited that you're back. And hopefully you will learn something from this. Besides learning, this is also a participation program. So feel free to raise your hand, jump in, ask questions, even if it's not on the topic we're discussing. Tom is our qualifying broker for the heart of Atlanta, and I'm the managing broker for Midtown. And when you have problems with your contract or you get calls from a disgruntled customer or client or co-oping agent, we get all of those calls. And what we have decided to do with this broker chat is kind of compile some of the things that come up quite often and discuss it with you so that you are aware of these things, because in this particular aggressive market, we tend to forget ourselves and we forget our ethics, we forget our contracts. And in some cases, some of us are on top of our game and we have to co-op with people that don't have this lovely broker chat and broker advantage in their arena. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started here as people start to pop on. And if you notice the title, I had an interesting title this week about injuries, photo shoots, and brokerage engagements. And you probably wonder, what possibly could that be about? But I've got stories. One of the things I always like to start out with when I'm presenting this is this little quote here saying, even the slightest mistake could end up costing you money, stress, and a tarnished reputation. We saw that on the Oscars last night. However, moving on to our talking points, we're going to have 4 talking points or 3 talking points today. What happens if someone is injured during your open house or showing? Just think about that for a second. Well, maybe you didn't think about that. Do you have carte blanche to do a photo shoot during a showing or a preview? Buyer paid commission. What? I thought the seller paid my commission. Now what's going on? We're going to talk about those 3 things. So if you are on this Zoom today and you have examples, questions, concerns, please don't be shy. Tom and I already know this stuff. We're here for you, and this is your time to shine. All right. So let's talk about the very first point. Let me just get someone to open your mic and just comment on this. Have you ever had anyone hurt in your property or said they were hurt, or maybe they damaged some property while they were there? Does anyone have an example that would like to share?
I'll share.
Okay.
I'll share, Deborah.
Go ahead, Tom.
So we had an agent in the Decatur office who broke his ankle tripping on, I forgot what it was, but it was something inside the listing. Okay. And the seller wound up paying for his doctor bill because of that.
And so that's a great example. When I talk to a couple of attorneys about this situation, usually it's something of a tripping hazard, whether it's an uneven sidewalk, a throw rug on the floor that is not secured to the floor with a rubber mat under it, or maybe the kids left some toys on the floor and mom and dad didn't get a chance to pick it up and move it out of the way, or you didn't catch it, that type of thing. The bigger issue that I wanted to discuss today is, are we liable as brokers and realtors? Now, Tom gave you an example that the homeowner because the homeowner probably carried homeowner's insurance, and maybe they filed a claim for that. All of us that own homes have some type of homeowner's insurance. And then a lot of you monthly pay something called E&O. And so E&O stands for errors and omissions. And I want to clear something up about errors and omission. We are talking about you erroring out there on the sidewalk or omitting something out there on the sidewalk. We aren't discussing if you break your ankle or trip over a rug or fall down a pair of obvious foyer steps and break your iPad. What happens then? So the example I had an agent that called, said, I've never had this happen before. An agent called and said, I came into your property and had a step down foyer, and you didn't clearly mark that there was a step. And I fell and broke my iPad. Now, it started with an iPad. Over several weeks, it was an iPad and then an Apple Watch. And who knows if it would have escalated. Now, I'm not saying, I don't have any evidence of what happened. There are no pictures. There's nothing, there was nothing sent to me saying that, you know, the iPad was broken and so on and so forth. I could only go by what our agent told me. And I said, well, technically, this is a legal issue to begin with, and you immediately need to let your homeowner know because it happened in their home. But what I also wanted to bring up in this particular chat today is, could we be liable? And the answer is yes. However, when we try to sue anyone or get something from someone, we must also have proof, pictures, show negligence, because a judge is not going to look at this and say, okay, so you broke your iPad, I'm going to award you a new iPad. I need to see that there was negligence. So what would that look like? When you are walking through a home with a homeowner for a listing appointment, you probably want to make sure there are no tripping hazards. If you are the type of agent who likes to stage properties, you want to make sure that you're not staging property furniture or anything of that nature in the way of a walkway. Make sure all walkways are clear. If there's a tripping hazard because of an uneven sidewalk, maybe you put something in the special remarks or the private remarks to the agent. Please be careful, just like we would give a notice, you know, about maybe there are monitoring devices in the home, to just give that agent a heads up. Be professional, be courteous, and please watch out for, because one of the things that agent brought up to our agent is that you didn't clearly mark that when I walk into the home, the foyer had a step down. So my question to that agent was, did the material of the flooring change? Did it go from carpet to hardwood, or, you know, something that wouldn't be clear? And that agent said, no, it was completely hardwood foyer, hardwood floors. It was very clear. And we did work that out. And I won't go into the results of that. The whole purpose of this is to talk about paying attention to what's going on in that person's home. When they're asking you, what should I do to my home? It's more than just declutter. It's please clear all pathways so it's easy for the person to walk. Will this resolve everything? No, someone could still wear the wrong shoes or, you know, accidentally trip on their own feet or something like that. That could happen. But you want to do everything possible for proof reasons that you went through the home with the homeowner to protect them as well as yourself. But at the end of the day, this is a legal issue and an attorney would need to handle it. Of course, you can come to your broker to see if we can work this out, you know, what was the reason, so on and so forth. But if it escalates, what attorneys have told me is that that person would need to hire an attorney, file a claim against the homeowner, and they may even file one against you and the brokerage. So just know that that is not an E&O issue. That's going to be a legal issue. Tom, do you have anything to add on that?
One more thing I would say as you're walking through the home with your client is make sure if they have a medicine cabinet, for example, in their bathroom, and they are on any kind of medication that other people would like to use,
Recreationally.
not, yeah, recreationally, make sure that you put that away. Several years ago, there was a known lady in the in-town market, and she would go to every open house and steal drugs out of the medicine chest. And we know this because we caught her.
And that was probably pre everyone having Ring doorbells and devices in their home. And almost everyone has that now, but for the few that still don't have cameras inside their home, you know, you don't want to be accused of things. There have been instances of, you know, during Christmas, oh, someone, you know, stole gifts, or I had one years ago. They broke some brick off of the fireplace or something like that. I don't know how that could have happened, but it could. Maybe the brick was loose. Maybe someone leaned on it. It fell on the ground. Now they're being accused of that. I know this particular subject we're talking about, you're going, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to get the contract straight and get a house before everyone else. Now I have to make sure no one gets injured. It's part of the job. I will say to those of you that are on here, especially if you're new, that's not common, but you want to have your guard up when you are walking through the home. And if you don't already have it on your checklist when you're walking through the home, put it on there. It's just one extra thing to make sure you've covered. And then if there is a situation, then you've got a checklist saying, I went through the checklist with the seller and I mentioned that. And that will be our smoking gun. All right. Any questions on that? You can unmic and ask, or we will move on. Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to list a house that has a lot of mold, and the deck in the back is not really safe to walk on. Like, even when I was walking the house, I asked them, is it safe for me to go on the deck? And I mean, it looks really flimsy. So how can I protect myself when people are going in there and looking at the property?
So what did the seller say about the deck? Are they willing to fix it? Or
No, they don't. No,
they don't want to fix anything.
Sold as is. Yeah, they don't want to fix anything. They don't have the financial needs to fix anything at this point.
Okay, so I'll give you a suggestion, 2 of them. The first one is maybe look into our Keller Offers program, where we have a ready to sell program, and maybe discuss that with them. If you're not certified to do that, what office are you in?
I'm of the Decatur office.
Decatur, okay. So talk to your team leader or your productivity coach about the Keller Offers Ready to Sell program. If you're not certified, you can get certified in a day or 2, and you can present that program to them to have that deck fixed, so that, and then pay for that at the closing if they have the proceeds to do that. If not, then I would definitely put something on the door going out to the deck, because I've sold a house like that before. We fixed the deck, but when I went to the listing appointment, the deck was so rotted, the seller warned me, don't walk out there. So obviously I wasn't going to sell the house that way, but let's just say we did decide to. Many of us work with investors where the home is, you know, going at your own risk type situation. That's another thing. Pay attention to those rehab homes, pre-rehab homes, being very careful when you take investors or buyers into those. So I would also suggest putting that in the private remarks. Deck is unstable, but but you've got to talk to the seller about that, because obviously if a buyer can't walk out there, they're going to also say, well, we want the deck replaced or fixed or whatever. So I think that's something that you need to go ahead and address either before you put it on the market, or how will we address that with a buyer? Because they're going to wonder, well, why should I buy your home and I can't walk out on the deck? Does that help you?
Yeah, and I mean, we are going to price it, you know, how it is, because it is going to be a flip. And yeah, I'm getting certified right now with Keller's Offers. I'm in the process of finishing the classes, because that one, you do have to submit the Keller offer before it's on market. It has to be an off-market property, right?
That's for the cash part, not for ready to sell. Ready to
Oh,
sell is an opportunity for you to help the seller get the home ready for sale, whether it's staging it, doing a renovation or whatever, and then they pay for that at closing. Okay, so look into those type of things. But if you decide to just sell it as is, I would definitely have some signs up, and I would put something in private remarks to let the agents know, please be careful, do not step out on deck, that type of thing, just to keep them from, they can look out the window and see it's a deck, you know, and if they need to get to the back, they can go out and go around or something like that. But if you feel like it's going to be a danger or cause injury, then I would do everything in my power to notify. Okay?
okay. And the same thing for the mold, to add that on the private remarks.
I would. Yeah, if that's something the seller is letting you know that you have, because that could be an issue too. If someone walks in and has allergies and they weren't prepared for that, usually someone who's doing a rehab knows they expect certain things in a home that they can't see. So I would probably be upfront on that. And plus you're probably going to have a lead paint exhibit and pamphlet available to that co-op agent as well. All right. Any other comments, questions, or we'll move on?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So are you ready for your close-up? I put some of the license law and standard of practices here because the latest thing that was brought to me was a seller last week who is filing a GREC complaint that an agent made an appointment to show their property, and this particular seller had cameras inside the home, and the agent came with a photo entourage and did a photo shoot in the person's home, out at the pool, in the kitchen, sitting on the countertops, this type of thing, and then left. And the seller was either in the car or across the street or whatever the case may be, and watched the entire thing, as well as video coverage, which they also submitted to GREC. Some of the standard of practices, I don't know how that will end up. We have a board and we have GREC to hold us accountable, and we have our brokers to hold us accountable, anyone with a license. And any of those things could come down on that agent. It could be a slap on the hand in a class. It could be a fine. It could be a suspension. It could be, we're going to take your license. I don't think it would be this serious that they would take the license, but there may be some consequences of maybe taking another ethics class or license law class to remind that agent of the behavior of being professional anytime you go into someone's home. So I pulled just a few, and these are just some of the things that we want to remind you, that you should not be accessing a listed property on terms other than those established by the owner and the listing broker. So let's say you're driving by a listing, you see it's on the market, you see a lockbox, and you just decide to go in. Right there, you have not called the co-op agent. You haven't looked at the instructions on how to go in. Now, many of us have looked at a home. We went to house A and happened to go in and see house B. Oh my gosh, that didn't show up on MLS this morning. It must be new. Let's go see it. But the first thing you should do is call that sign and say, I'm sitting outside your listing. I'd like to go in. Are there any special instructions? I didn't pull it. And we have so many apps now, FMLS app, KW Command app, Home Snap, all these different apps that you can pull that listing up, read the information, call the agent right there from your app, or call them from their sign. I say sign because that's kind of the old way we used to do it, and no one really does that anymore as far as call from signs. For the most part, they're all calling from their couch. So for us, we have apps to check on that information and make sure it's okay to go in, because you may find out that it's already under contract and you shouldn't be accessing it anyway if it's under contract. Or if the agent says, you know what, I'd love to have a backup, go ahead and go in and know that it is under contract, but we are accepting backups. That is the proper way to enter someone's home when you have not made an appointment or if you don't know the listing information. You're also, let's just say you are that person who goes in to do a photo shoot. I find that, now I'm not all over social media and that type of thing to know what everyone's doing, but a lot of you may be following certain people that have a really good Instagram or Facebook or what social media presence. And I was a little surprised that agents believe that they can go into a home, take photos, and then put them up on Facebook talking about it with no credit given to the actual listing agent or the brokerage. If you notice on your website, we have this thing called reciprocity. We have permission from our qualifying broker to those services to have a feed of our listings that will then go to FMLS and Georgia MLS, KWLS, IMLS, and all the LSs. But also those companies will sell to other search engines. And those listings are always tagged. They may show your face, but if you scroll to the bottom of that listing, there's always going to be a tag that says presented by or exclusively listed by, or it depends on what the search engine uses for the terminology, but some disclaimer under that listing to say who it really belongs to. And we have permission due to reciprocity to advertise this on our website. If you don't have permission from that listing agent and owner, and when I say permission, not, hey, Deborah, can I put your listing 123 Main Street on my social media? Yeah, go ahead, Susie. No, there has to be written, because we can go back to if you are misleading the consumer to believe that that's your listing, if you're misleading the consumer out there on the street about a property. That is the problem with just going into someone's house, taking pictures, and then putting them up on social media. And I know a lot of you are probably shaking your head. Well, I see this every day. It's not correct. It's not correct. Tom, do you want to add anything to this? And I have some of the standard of practices up here on this page and the next slide, giving you an idea of how this is to be done properly.
Yeah, I think you said everything that I would say. And when agents ask me these same questions, I'm like, well, you've got to have permission from the listing agent. You just can't go in. Another example that happened recently here in my neighborhood is that we had a listing that was under contract, and an agent just popped in without asking, calling, and there was a radon test going on in the main room. And as you know, that can really affect the results. And so just, guys, the bottom line is be professional and do the right thing and make the calls, get the permission, get things in writing, and put your name, signature on your Texas.
And the other thing, guys, when someone does that, you don't know where they're putting that listing. And because we are so tech connected, the sellers, they're finding their listings. They have friends that, oh, I didn't know you were selling your house. I found it on, some weird website. And then now they're calling you as the listing agent as to, I didn't give you permission to put my listing on that site. I didn't want it on that site. There's an example of that happened a couple of weeks ago where the seller didn't want the listing in Georgia, in FMLS, only Georgia MLS, because it was a hot neighborhood and, cars were parked all along the streets. And that seller just didn't want that kind of, they wanted an offer, but they didn't want that kind of activity because they also worked from home and on and on and on and on. Well, there was a better way to handle that. I just want to share this with all of you. Our qualifying broker is a member of the boards that we're a member of and the MLS services that we're a member of. And because the qualifying broker is a member, we are members. When that qualifying broker is not a member, we cannot be a member. So if you don't pay your board dues, if you, and you're canceled, guess what? Your FMLS shuts down, your Georgia MLS shuts down, your super key shuts down eventually. Okay, it's a slow thing that happens. So don't think you're getting away with anything. It will be, and it'll probably happen right when you need to write an offer or go into someone's home. So just know that we have to have permission. We have to advertise properties correctly based on what your listing agreement says. That's why the listing agreement says, there's a blank that says, I'm going to advertise in the following multi-listing services. And we only offer all agencies except for whatever your market center says we don't. For the most part, everyone should know that we don't offer sub-agency, but then there may be some differences amongst the market centers about dual agency. So you just check with your market center to see what we do, what we will and will not allow, okay? But you notice right here, I've got the second slide up here that says, we won't offer for sale, lease, or advertise properties without authority. Again, permission, right? And then the second part, will not advertise or permit any person employed by or affiliated with them to advertise real estate services in any medium, electronically, print, radio, so on and so forth. That's not an apparent, in an apparent manner that we are the listing agent. And if you want information, you can talk to that agent, you know, who is sending it to you, but you can also call the listing agent direct. And we have a lot of services out there like the Zillow and Realtor.com and things like that, that you pay for those things. That's okay. But I'm talking about going in someone's home and just taking pictures and then filling your social media up to look like you have a lot of business. Okay, and in license law, it's also part of license law, not just code of ethics and standard of practice. It's also part of our license law. And if you pull out your independent contract, it's in there as well. Okay, we all joined and signed and didn't read. It's in there as well. So you're in violation of your qualifying broker having a little chat with you. You could have Greg call you. You could have your board call you. So just be very, very careful of that. All right. Any questions about that? Examples? Had that experience? Good. If no one answers, that's a good thing. Or you just don't want to, and that's okay. All right. So just remember, when you're getting ready for your close-up, make sure you're following these laws. And that includes doing photo shoots in someone's property, on their property, in their property, around their property. All right, let's talk about the exclusive brokerage agreement. In 2022, it was revised a little bit, the form about commissions. And for those of us that have been around for a while, it's very customary in Georgia for the seller to pay our commission. However, there are instances, maybe for sale by owner, that the seller says, you can bring a buyer, but I'm not paying commission, which means you need to get your buyer to pay. And that, most of us have good scripts in order to turn that around and get the seller to pay it, or maybe the price was increased to cover that as long as it's going to appraise. There's all the tricks of the trade to make that happen. But we are noticing in this new aggressive market, and I know I overuse that word aggressive, but it is compared to what I've experienced over the years, that you're noticing in the MLS services, commissions not offered to the co-op agent, or maybe only 1% is offered, or 0.5% or 2%. And what is happening more and more is that agents are getting upset with the co-op agent, the listing agent, instead of properly contacting the agent to say, hey, that commission of 1% or 2% seems low. It's kind of typical, and I want you to hear the word I just used, typical. There's no such thing as standard. You cannot say the word standard. We don't have standard commissions. You're violating a lot of things when you use that word. Typical, learn to just repeat it in the mirror. Typical, 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 typical. It's typical because it is typical, all right? To see a blank commission, whatever it is you want to say after that statement. And let's just say, you know your numbers, you know that Every transaction, you need to make at least X amount. And maybe the builder, I'll use that as an example because that's the example I hear the most, is only offering 1%, but you're used to getting 3. That means if we look at this paragraph 4 here, when you fill out the agency, it says at the closing of a contract to purchase as that term is hereafter defined, entered into during the term of this agreement, minus any commission paid to the broker by either the seller's broker or the seller. Okay, so the seller's offering 1, you'd like to get 3. Therefore, buyer acknowledges by signing this agreement that the commission, if any, being offered by the seller's broker is usually set forth in the multiple listing service in which the property may be listed. So if you put something here, not if, you should be putting something on 4B, whether it's a percentage. So let's say you check this box and you put 3 there. If you put 3 there and the builder is offering 1, then your buyer is paying you the difference, the 2%. Or you may say, it's 1% and maybe my buyer is a little cash strapped. And so therefore I'm going to just work something out with them. And instead of a percentage, we're going to do a dollar amount. Or you can check other, you know what? I love that hot tub in the house that we're selling and we're going to just barter that. Yes, that can be done. You have to talk to your broker about it. And I say that because there have been instances where, you know, someone said, you know what, I love that hot tub. Instead of selling it, I'd love to buy it from you, or whatever the case may be, or we can barter that as part of my commission or something like that. So I don't want to get too detailed on that kind of thing, but it does happen. So how are you guys handling? I know when this was discussed in contract classes and when the new changes came about, it's been a very hot topic and it's not being handled well. Agents are calling other agents, getting into kind of fisticuff fights about the commission and accusing people of things and so on and so forth. And so how do you handle that? Well, I would probably handle it and say, well, that's what the seller agreed to. And you're probably going to have to go to your buyer. And most people don't want to go to their buyer. They just want to come to you as the listing agent and fix it. And I don't want us to get into any arguments with each other because we have a culture of being fair. And especially with Keller Williams, if you're getting let's call it a 6% commission, most agents are going to expect to be getting 3. But I do realize sometimes there are extenuating circumstances that maybe you're going to take a little bit more and offer less. And I want to just encourage all of us to think that through as a business decision, because you don't want to get the reputation of always making more and offering less. And of course, it's against the rules to not show a listing, but you might get a little bit of side eye when someone looks at your listing to say, okay, they're offering 1 again, which means they might be getting 5. Why should I bother? And it's a little harder in this market right now, showing a gazillion homes, spending a second mortgage to put gas in your car, and so on and so forth. So comments, questions, misunderstandings, floor is open. And Tom, do you have anything to add to this?
The only thing I want to add is it is an issue. There are agents out there that undercut their commission to get listings versus sellers not willing to pay. Our job as professionals is to show the seller the value that you bring to the table, okay? And to show the value of that 6%. But if you are one of those agents who is undercutting your commission to get listings, I find it a bitter pill to swallow that you've agreed to take less. Do not shortchange the buyer's agent. Okay. If you decide to take a commission of 5%, you should take 2, and that buyer's agent should take 3. I feel very strongly about that.
You as well. And there are instances in our careers where we've done that. And because what's more important to me is that you show my listing. So I want to compensate you well. Constance, you have, and thank you, Leona. He's right. Tom is right. We really need to think that through. The money will come in the business if you work the business professionally and properly. When you have to start playing with the numbers so that you make more, you really are discouraging buyers and agents to work with you. It's just not a good look. We're not here to tell you you can't do it. We're just encouraging you to think of this as a better business decision, because when you're a good co-op agent, agents will reach out to you and say, what do you have in your pocket? I've got a buyer. I know you've got something. I love working with you. That's the type of reputation for longevity that you want in this business. Okay. Constance, you had a comment. Would you go ahead and unmic and ask your question or make your comment?
Well, it was just a statement that, I have the conversation with my clients who are buyers, that if the commission is lower than 3%, they would have to pay the difference, and they're okay with it. But sometimes when we go out and we see that the commission's at like 2% or 1%, it cuts into their budget to purchase the home. And, I'm presenting the home as I should because it's in the area and was in their budget. But once we start doing the math, they're passing on those homes. So I just want other listing agents to know that buyers are starting to not be so desperate to purchase a home where, they'll cut into their budget over commissions. If they really, really love the home, of course, I'll try and negotiate, but it's sad that something that they could have typically paid for, they can't get because they feel nickeled and dimed. Right.
And what message are we sending? That, at the end of the day, think of a doctor who takes an oath, first do no harm. We shouldn't do harm to the consumer. It's tough enough finding properties because of the limited inventory, and then we're going to complicate it by not paying the co-op agent, who is the person who's putting that person in the car, driving on 285 traffic with all the roads torn up. Now it seems like, there was a time you could show several properties a day. Now you're lucky if you can get 2 in. And by the time you get there, there's a line outside. Put yourself in someone's shoes to say, I appreciate you as a colleague, and I want us to co-op together, and we can both go skipping to the closing table with our clients happy. And that reputation gets out there that we are doing the right thing. Because if you notice, there are a lot of people out there interested in a share of our commission in the form of wholesalers, iBuyers, and everything else that's being created in the basement right now. And if we don't show a sense of professionalism to each other, we leave a crack for others to come in and say, well, guess what? Don't worry about that anymore, buyer. We'll do it for free. We see it every time. We won't be replaced. Everyone likes to say that every time. They've been saying it since the internet started. We won't be replaced, but maybe we will end up giving another slice of our pie away because we're behaving badly. Okay. I see 2 hands up. I see Barbara and then Joel, please. Barbara.
Okay. How is everyone doing? Hello, family.
Hi, Barbara.
My only comment to this is that if we're not careful, as long as I have been licensed, the seller has always paid commission. And if we're not careful, we will create an industry where the buyers are paying commissions on these sales. It's not something that will happen overnight, but we're headed that direction if we don't get a handle on this commission thing.
Yeah, I agree. If any of you read Inman News or any of the other real estate rags, your Georgia Magazine, your Realtor Magazine, there have been articles in all of these publications about commissions, and it's starting in the West, and then what's in the West eventually moves to the East, because there have been lots of discussion, which Barbara has mentioned, I've mentioned. If you've gone to any NAR type events, it's mentioned. So, we're not saying in this broker chat, everybody should have this on your shoulders. It takes one. And if you model the behavior, people will notice, and people will take notice of that and work with you. But you're exactly right. As long as all of us have, whether it's your first day or your 30th day, or 30th year, we're used to sellers participating in the commission in some type of way, if not all of it. So thank you for that. Joel?
Yes, I just wanted to say as a listing agent, I think that we should, one, go to our sellers and get at least 6% commission, if not higher, and then share it. I just believe that, because we always try to do it with the athlete team, is to have at least 3%. Because I know it's hard. I mean, it's tough out there. Sometimes you're on the other end and you want to get paid too. So I just think that's one of the things that we should definitely try to uphold and share the wealth. As far as the buyer, actually paying the commission, if it's not the actual 3%, a lot of times what I'll try to do is if it's 2.5%, instead of getting them to pay the other 0.5, my thing is to just tell them how good the service is going to be, and who do you know as far as providing a referral, where we can then go out and turn that into dollars again. So because it is hard. I mean, these guys are having to pay down payment, closing costs, and then if they have to pay a portion of our commission, it can be a little tough. And the last thing we want them to do is not go get a house because of the extra expense, when we can make them happy and they can go ahead and tell their friends and continue to and not look at it as a one and done deal, but as a relationship that can last for a long, long time. So that's all I have to add.
Thank you for that. It's great for you to say that. The other thing too, I'll add on what Joel is saying, it's not only the buyer's expense, but also the fact that I'm hearing discussions about not showing certain properties because they're not offering the typical commission. I have a problem with that as well, because it's hard enough finding inventory, and then to decide not to show it because it's not offering. It's your business and you can do what you want, but I just don't think that's going to serve you for a career and longevity in the business, because what goes around comes around, and what's up is going to come down, and vice versa. There's going to come a time when our inventory will increase and things will kind of balance out. And some of these people that have decided, well, you pay your own person, they're either going to continue with that practice because it was so financially beneficial to them, or they're going to realize, no, we kind of really need those agents to bring those buyers to look at it. Or we're going to condition the buyers to say, I don't need an agent because they're going to make me pay. And to what Barbara's point was, and we're going to create that habit, so just really, really think this through. So what should you do if you're having the discussion, and you should be, when you're working with a buyer, you should be, first of all, by law, you must start with agency, either a customer agreement or exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, or if it's a seller, exclusive listing agreement, so on and so forth. So how do you broach the conversation and find out where they are financially to be able to do that, and let them know the value you're going to add? And I'm not going to keep you from seeing properties just based on the commission. The commission is not even a factor until they pick a house. You could have a gazillion properties to show at 6%, and they end up picking the one that's 5, and you're getting 2.5. So one of the things that Wiseman did in the latest video, he did some special steps, which if you're in the Midtown office, they should be posted with our contracts. And then if you use Remind, they're in the filing cabinet with Remind. But under buyer brokerage paying your commission, you have two options here. You can have the no commission owed by the buyer to assure them that you won't be asking them for anything. And, it says right here, notwithstanding any revision to the contrary contained in this agreement, broker shall not look for the buyer to pay any portion of the broker's commission except if the buyer defaults in its obligation under this agreement. So you're not giving up the obligation if the buyer flakes out on you or buys the house with someone else and owes you a commission. That's not going away. This is talking about if the commission is 1% and you're asking them to pay the difference, what this special stip is saying is you won't come to them for the difference. Because as this grows, your buyers will become savvy to asking this question. They may not be asking it yet because they understand that the seller is probably paying you. But if they don't understand it, then this is one way you could say, you know what, I'm going to put this in here so that you have my word. I will accept whatever the co-op commission is. I won't be asking you for it. Or if the buyer is going to be obligated, you can also cap it and say, I won't, let's just say they can pay 1% of it. So you've got a 2% that's offered and they're willing to pay 1%, there's your 3, or it's 1% and the most that their budget could stand is 1%, then fine, you write 1% in here, okay? There's nothing wrong with amending anything once you get an offer, but knowing upfront the circumstances and the obligation will kind of ease everyone's mind. So notwithstanding any provision to the contrary contained in this agreement, the maximum commission that the buyer shall be obligated to pay the buyer's broker in the event that the seller or listing broker does not pay broker's commission set forth herein shall be a dollar amount or a percentage of the gross purchase price paid at closing. Any questions about these two special steps? I think Brenda Foster has a comment.
Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, rather.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, this is my first meeting like this, but
Welcome.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad we're talking about it because I'm going to ask help from our brokers to come up with an addendum to the buyer agreement and or the listing agreement based upon an experience I just had.
Okay.
A loan officer with Contour Mortgage sent me an email. No, he texted me first. And he said, this seller needs help selling their commercial property. And wanted me to get the word out to the agents. So I didn't know if it was listed. I was in a hurry, but when I did some digging, the property is listed with Caldwell Banker. It was a co-op. It was a co-broker, a co-agent listing, 2 agents on the listing. Let me put it that way. And the selling commission was advertised at 3.5%. So the seller wanting to sell this property fast, and I mean, when I contacted the seller before I realized it was listed, the only thing the mortgage officer sent me was a loop net. They didn't send me a GAMLS or anything, but experience said you need to go dig this further. And so when I saw what I saw, by that time I had made contact. I had texted the seller to ask questions about the property, and the seller made it very clear that the brokerage commission was not an object. It was not a problem. She made it sound like, and this didn't sound like a novice seller, a commercial property seller. This sounded like somebody very experienced. So number one, I backed off of it. I said, I cannot pursue this listing at all because it's listed. And tell me if I was wrong, because somebody else might do the same thing. I did add, if this property does not sell and you'd like to contact me, please reach out again. Now, give us some input on how you would have handled that. And if there is some addendum or statement that we can legally put in a listing agreement and or a buyer agreement that says, and I want to throw in one more caveat here. At the closing table on difficult transactions, I've had sellers want to gift me jewelry, an additional $500, after closing. After closing, they'll do this. So I think we need something in writing up front to say, hey, if you really like the job I did and you want to give me a bonus, whatever, this is how you do it. So I'm saying help, we need help.
Okay. We're going to unpack a few things here. I want to ask you, are you a commercial agent or are you a residential agent?
I'm going to say, after being licensed over 32 years, I do it all. If I can't do it all, then I'll refer to someone that can.
Okay, that's the right answer. So we have to be very careful about crossing over into areas of expertise. In our standard of practice, it talks about kind of stay in your lane. And if you feel comfortable and you know the proper way to execute certain transactions like commercial, land, luxury, so on and so forth, then so be it. We're all licensed in the state of Georgia to sell whatever we want, but we're probably better at certain arenas than others. I'm not sure how to respond to the loan officer scenario you gave. And so, Tom, you may want to jump in here, but I'm guessing that this loan officer sent what he thought was a referral, but it was already listed. And you just wanted to let that seller know that if it doesn't sell, they could call you back. You're kind of coming close to the gray area there, because we're not supposed to cross listing agreements, buyer agreements. We're not supposed to solicit, so on and so forth. That's why when you send out marketing materials and things like that, it says, it should always have at the bottom that if I've mailed this to you and you're already listed, please disregard this. I'm kind of paraphrasing that disclaimer, but we have to be very careful about crossing listing agreements and offering services when that person is already listed with someone. You could watch it and see if it expires, and then it shows up on your expired list and it's, open season. You can prospect that person at that point. But commercial is a different animal, and you've got the years of experience to know that. And I would just caution you on crossing over. And you, like I said, you said the right thing by saying if it's something that you can't handle, you would refer that. As far as getting gifts, bonuses, anything at the closing table, all transactions must run through the broker. I kind of gave a little example of that earlier in the call. Back in the day, and especially you've been in the business long enough to know there was a time builders offered, a 1-year lease on a BMW or a vacation trip to Hawaii or whatever, $1,000 card to Nordstrom's. All of that has to be disclosed to the broker. Nothing should be handed, and probably everyone on this Zoom call, including myself, at some point, or if it hasn't happened to you, it will. At some point, someone wanted to give me something. If it's not part of the commission, or if it's a physical item, you must talk to your broker about it before accepting anything. If you are accepting money under the table or accepting things of gifts, you are in violation. You've signed an independent contract that everything will run through the brokerage. Okay, so there is no addendum. And I don't think, and Tom, you can jump in here, I don't think our qualifying broker is going to create anything for you to do that, because that would open a whole Pandora's box. So Tom, do you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, no, we're not going to have an addendum like that, because I think that would definitely cross over lines. I'm not sure, Brenda, where you were in the conversation when the seller told you that he had the property listed, but at that point, you should have immediately said, "Oh, I'm very sorry, I shouldn't be speaking to you," and hang up the phone. Now, here's the difference. If a seller who is listed, has property listed with another broker, contacts you for conversation about perhaps you taking over that listing when it expires, that is acceptable in our code of ethics. But you cannot in that conversation, and you can have a conversation with them about your process and your marketing and the things that your value proposition, if you will, which kind of goes back to the whole commission piece that we were talking about. If you're not getting 6%, okay, same thing with this. You've got to explain, you can talk about your value proposition, and then if they decide to list with you when their listing expires, or they or that broker releases them from any further obligation on that agreement, then at that point you can have open dialogue.
Yeah, we just have to be careful with that. Joel, you have your hand up.
May I make one more comment before
Sure,
I
Brenda, go ahead.
leave it? Okay. This commercial listing advertised 3.5% to the selling company, selling broker. But because there were 2 agents involved on the listing side, and it has been a number of years since I did a commercial sale, listing or sale, I kind of sort of think when the listing agents listed it, they decided they'd take 7% for themselves, well, 6.5% for themselves, and 3.5% for the selling agent. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is that perhaps if someone else lists something, if any of us list a commercial property, last time I did one, it was 10% that was popular for sales commission, that that you do, get that clarified with the seller, how you're splitting that commission. They might not understand. And because the property was very nice property, to me, it should have sold by now. That's just me. But I don't think maybe the agents push the idea that, look, if you want a quick sale, we need to make it attractive not only to the buyer, but also to the agent showing the property, and try to negotiate for a little bit higher commission. Okay, now after the closing, I want to get this real clear. So after the closing, these satisfied sellers say, okay, I really want to give you this at a little bonus. Is there anything we can put in that listing agreement that says, if you are overwhelmingly glad with the job I did, my broker must know if you're willing to give me a bonus? And which I told them we needed to have divulged this at closing. We should have modified the things at that point. So I didn't take it. I didn't take the money, because at that point I just, I wanted to get this over. But in any case, if we had a little paragraph or something, a little special step that says, if you really want to give a bonus, it must be divulged, prior to closing, so that we can put everything on the table, let everybody know what's going on. And also gratuities. You might even, if you will, address gratuities when there is no, the broker is not a part of the listing or the sale of the contract, but they are due a gratuity, or that the seller wants to give a gratuity, maybe to a, I don't know, someone that just comes up in the conversation at the last stage of the transaction. Thank you.
I'm gonna try to unpack that, and Joel, I haven't forgotten you. You're using the word.
I'll jump in here.
Okay,
This-
yeah.
There are all kinds of situations that pop up. We're just going to leave it at this. Get in touch with your broker as if you would any other issue regarding a transaction, and we will make a decision about what needs to happen.
But the thing that I wanted to add, regardless of you calling your broker, all money has to run through the broker, which means, yes, it may be a gratuity, it may be a bonus, it may be whatever word you want to put to it. It still has to be made out to Keller Williams Realty blank. It can't be made out to Brenda Foster. It can't be made out directly to Constance or Joel. It cannot be made out directly to you because you're an independent contractor under the umbrella of a brokerage, period. Unless you own your own brokerage, you cannot take any kind of money in your name, period. That's why we do DAs, so that we inform the attorney that permission has been granted to have your check made out to you, whatever your portion is going to be, and the other checks are made out to Keller Williams Realty blank, which you bring back to the office, or the attorney wires over, or however that's done for your particular market center. So I agree with Tom. I don't want to get too deep into how we can get bonuses and things of that nature. It does happen. I haven't seen it lately, but it does happen. And kudos to you if your clients really see the value in you and they want to give you some extra. There's nothing wrong with that, you guys, but it has to be done properly. And you, as the business owner and the professional, can write anything in a special stip to cover yourself. But as far as myself as the managing broker and Tom, we're not going to provide any kind of I can tell you that right now, because that's, some people are not going to be able to do that properly. And so we're not going to give you carte blanche to add that kind of verbiage in there, because it's really about the value that you're giving to your client, not the bonuses. So hopefully that
We just had a
helps you understand our
situation.
position.
Deborah, we just had a situation, I believe it was in the South Fulton Market Center, where an agent called me and the seller wanted to give them a $500 bonus. And I walked her through how to make that happen legally. And so
Yeah, that's going to be case by case.
Are rare. But yeah, exactly.
Joel, you had your hand up. You go ahead and unmic and make your.
No, I had it up from the last time. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. So here you have the special steps. I sent this also to Tom for if you're not in the Midtown office. So that way, whoever handles special steps, maybe you guys already had it. If you want to know more about both of these special steps, the latest episode that Seth Wiseman did, you can watch those videos. For those of you that are new to this call and you're not familiar with that, Seth Wiseman is one of the co-authors of our contracts. He also wrote the Red Book, co-authored the Red Book, which breaks down each form that we have. It's 2 volumes, and he also has a YouTube channel called, what is that YouTube channel called, Barbara?
Can't remember it either, Deborah.
I can see
I just always go to GAR and pull them off.
Yeah, you can pull them off on GAR, or just go to YouTube and type in Wiseman's name and it'll pop up. And there are several, I think it's like episode 60 something, which was the latest one that came out last week or week before last. And you can watch those videos. I would suggest you put the notification on your phone That way, as he releases a new video, you can watch that. It's always good content. And sometimes when he puts special tips out there, I will capture those and provide those to the office for agents to be able to use when they run into situations. Okay.
Hey,
Any
Deborah,
other-
can I make one,
Sure.
can I make one announcement before you
Wrap
close
up.
the meeting? Okay, guys, so we were talking about going in and advertising other people's listings, and while on this call, I just got a call from a Better Homes and Garden broker saying that one of our agents is advertising their listing, and they've asked her to take it down, and they're calling to let me know that they've made that request. So
Yeah, I don't know where this is being taught.
don't do it unless you have
Yeah.
permission.
I don't know, there's somewhere or some webinar or something that's teaching this because it's becoming a thing. And what is happening when newer agents see someone else successful doing it and they haven't been caught is really that's the only thing. But it's starting to escalate and sellers are getting pissed off about it, and they're calling on their own, going to Greg, because the two sellers that contacted me last week sent me a copy of the application they filled out along with video against those agents. So it's just a simple thing. Don't do it. Why be called on the rug on something that you know you're not supposed to do in the first place? And you don't need that on your record. You don't need that in your life. Real estate is tough enough. You just don't need that extra headache. So just don't do it. Be careful. Go out there and get your own listings, create your own listings by prospecting in the fashion that you like to prospect, whether it's phone, door knocking, mailing, social media. Get your own listings, and they're out there. So that's what we have to say about it. That we're here to protect you. We're here to make sure you have a good career and do it properly. And for those that are not on this call that may have approached you asking the question, because we know colleagues like to talk to colleagues, you guys are educating yourself to say, I don't think we can do that, check with the broker, but here's my experience or here's my knowledge about it. But always direct those people to the broker, because people are doing things without permission. They just think, oh, what's the big deal? But we just live in a world now where it's too easy to just get on social media and find it. So please be careful out there. Does anyone else have any other comments? Let's see. I don't know what that should be correct comment. Did someone?
Deborah.
They're asking about the next broker strategy. I have no idea. Nyala does a great job.
I think it's good. I'm asking, is the next broker scheduled for the next broker strategy call scheduled for April 11th?
I don't know. Tom and I don't even schedule these. We're given the dates, and then we choose which one we're going to do, and we try to both be on all the calls, but sometimes he's got other engagements and sometimes I do, but for the most part we'll both be on the call, but I don't know what the next one will be.
Okay,
I'm guessing the 11th, but I don't know that.
It's
Okay,
probably going to be the 11th and the 25th would be my guess.
Yeah.
That's the 25th. Okay, and the last thing I'm just going to say in regards to your last subject, Deborah, is that it is definitely a violation of our code of ethics that we are all assigned as realtors to take those pictures without permission and use them. So you definitely are violating the code. And as one of your grievance chairpersons, when people file claims against individuals using their pictures, we actually do investigate it, and it can be consequences behind it. So make sure to not have your name on a complaint that I'll be reviewing.
And that's why I went to the regulation and pulled those different standards that you could be called on, because when a complaint is filed, they have to call out the actual standard of practice that you're violating, because I've sat on those committees before as well. So if you're not familiar with your code of ethics, I know we all had to take it this year, but a lot of people just sit in the class just to get through the 3 CE, but you really need to from time to time open it up and say, am I violating if I do this? Because it is very clear in there what we can and cannot do. And so So I want to thank everyone for being here. If we don't have any other additional questions, I don't see any in the chat.
I'd just like to jump in.
Phyllis,
This is
go right
Phyllis.
ahead. Oh,
Maybe-
great, a commercial lady. Go right ahead.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm great, thank you. I just want to say that maybe sometime in the near future, I know this is pretty much residential, and then we do have our KW commercial. But maybe sometime in the future, we could have a topic or two for commercial. Just throwing that out.
I love it. It's done. 'Cause
Thank
this is
you.
all about you guys. It's not about us. We just need to know. We struggle sometimes for topics. That's why I always have a PowerPoint, because I'm like, what are we going to talk? I don't want to hear silence. So just because I put a topic up there doesn't mean we have to stick to it. So
Okay.
by all means, and what I will challenge you with, Phyllis,
Yes.
bring the rest of your commercial group to the broker chat.
Yeah.
Because that will not only help you guys, but it will teach some of these residential agents where they need to learn to stay in their lanes.
Yes, I got him. I'm getting us all back in the office right now. We're pretty much back in our commercial team.
Good.
And I will work to get them on this call as well.
All right, it's done. We will make sure that we incorporate some commercial. As a matter of fact, we can have a little commercial moment in each one of these broker chats. It doesn't have to be the entire, we can have a topic, and we can also have a section for commercial on different things. So we may need your help on different things that have come up. I don't get a lot of commercial complaints. I don't know where they're going, but I don't get a lot of commercial complaints or issues, but I bet you they're out there.
Oh, yeah. The number one is that commercial agents do not return calls.
Well,
That I
that's on the residential side too.
yeah. And they just despise working on the weekends. So
Yeah. That kind of works on the residential side too. So, all right. So we have a lot in common. Anyway, you guys are fantastic. I hope you're going to have a great week. My understanding is that the market is starting to pick up a little bit more. We've had a little lull there when everybody kind of panicked a little bit with the interest rates going up, which going up is still a good rate. And, just go out there and be the best that you can be. And I believe the people that are on this call are the best, because you're constantly investing in yourself, in knowledge, and that is powerful. And I do thank you for giving Tom and I your time. And I'm sure the dates will come out, but the 11th is probably pretty accurate. For those of you that are in the Midtown office, I'll be teaching contracts 101 and 102. I believe it's the 4th, April 4th and 6th. If you're in heart of Atlanta and you want to attend, just call our front desk to get a seat so we can make sure we have lunch for you as well. But we will have contract class. It won't be going over new contract. It'll just be, basic contract items. So if you have any questions about that, the front desk should be able to help you with that. Does anybody else have anything else before we close out today? Nope. With that being said, thank you so much for being here, and go sell some real estate.
thank
Thank you
you.
guys.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Deborah and Tom.